because political representation of local communities belongs to the nation state. Democratical system works with faults, not perfectly, with populistic slogans and politics, but still it is working. So again, and I'm finishing, as far as it goes just to pure economics projects, it might be successful. As far as it goes to the political system formation, which is not prognosable in the foreseeable future, but still, we are thinking comparable with the EU, right? If it trespasses, goes beyond to over the economical needs, it will face the same legitimacy problem as the EU. Sorry for being so long.
Maybe one of the explanation of the problem you have described is that in European Union we have full deconstructions. I mean, like in Derrida writings, we have the deconstruction on all levels, from the state level up to the European Union level. And my question is to Professor Tomasz Grzegos, who is an expert from Derrida. Please tell me, am I right, or we have more processes in this case?
First of all, thank you very much for invitation. Secondly, it is, of course, a very interesting question about disintegration tendencies in the current project of regional integration in Europe. It is quite visible that we have at least a couple of very important projects which are derailed and instead of having some paving the way to prosperous Europe, direct current European projects into mess, I would say. We mentioned many times that, for instance, creation of European identity based on unrooting traditional national values or Christian values, instead of them imposing some left-wing modernist, communist values. It is a socio-technical project, social engineering project, which should create a new European and a new European nation, people. And instead of that, it leads to money tensions, destabilizations, and this kind of problems. So it is quite obvious example that it is very difficult to create European nation around left-wing liberal values, and at the same time removing the traditional values, which should be natural foundation of Europeans. So the second fault project is, in my view, migration policy, I have no time to explain this in more details, but it is related to European identity because massive influx of migrants was perceived by European elites as a way to create new European nation, new Europeans. But in my view, it is very difficult. Such producing cohesive identity or community from multicultural ingredients. So it is in my view very difficult idea. Another project which is in my view rather leading to disaster than to creation of stronger Europe. The next one is two economic projects, Euro and climate policy. Unfortunately, I have no time to explain in details why I perceive that those projects as another failures from the point of strengthening European integration. But it is quite visible that Eurozone is rather a reason for a variety of problems than for European Union than some important project which could strengthen that integration. The same is with climate policy. We are at the beginning, but even if we read Draghi's report, the latest Draghi's report, it is quite obvious for me as a reader that even now climate policy, that kind of climate transition which was planned by the EU is leading to disaster from the point of view of competitiveness of European economy, the industrialization processes, outflow of investors from Europe, hesitation for others to invest in Europe, strengthening natural European competitors like Americans or Chinese entrepreneurs. So it is summing up, even at the beginning of that process, disaster. So if we collect all those projects, it is quite obvious that it is a huge disappointment from the perspective of strengthening European integration. We observe contradictory results. Not that project, but expected. What is the answer of current European elite? To strengthen the same. So, because centralization, giving the additional powers to current European elite, current European administration, current European judges, and at the same time strengthening two biggest nations, I mean the German and the French. It is for sure a recipe for quicker disaster. It is a recipe to catastrophe, but realized more quickly, because with better instruments. So, because the old problems described by me were created by the same political elite, the same political leadership, French, German, European officials, European judges. So strengthening the powers of those elite, it is a recipe for quicker disaster. And it is, by the way, I agree, a non-democratic way to produce the outcome. And the Schuman, at the beginning of European integration, proposed a quite different model from the point of view of democracy or democratic, more decentralized, more subsidiary, based on national democracies and national member states, not super state structures. It is quite different prospect or plan for European integration. The question is if we have any chances to change the pattern of current European integration, to come back to Schuman recipes. Current European elites propose quite opposite recipes, quite opposite proposals. As I said, it is a recipe for quicker disaster. It is the same elite, the same leadership, but with strengthened powers, which means that it is not only a problem for us, but very far from that proposals for European integration which Schuman admitted or proposed. So it is difficult to predict, but if the current trends would be strengthened, that project of European integration led by France and Germany and European technocracy could finish badly one day. And if somebody like we still believe in regional integration, successful regional integration, with some collaboration with the Schuman ideas, we should be ready to implement such an ideas after that spectacular collapse of current European Union. So we have to prepare for that kind of disaster to rebuild regional integration in Europe in that kind of direction which Schuman proposed. So it is in my view, maybe pessimistic, maybe optimistic, but realistic point of view on the current stage of affairs. I'm pessimistic about current European Union, led by Western elites, unfortunately, And in my opinion, it's difficult to change that pattern because, in fact, Schuman failed. Was buried. His ideas, his proposals completely fail in that in current stage of European integration. So I'm not optimistic, I'm pessimist as far as the current European integration processes is concerned. On the other hand, I'm still optimist because some hope is in our region, in Central Europe. We have quite different political culture. We have still traditional values. We try to defend at least those values. And finally, we could propose some kind of Schuman, in fact, recipes for another stage of European integration. So it is my most important conclusion.
So I'm sorry, Anna. So I feel, that let me give a voice for audience. Okay, so that, after the lunch, it's probably very tiring, that we are just talking, so just be some kind, not just to ask the questions, but, raise your voice about some certain context or anything you would like to talk about this. Okay.
Thank you. I wanted to touch on what Professor from Lithuania said about the subsidiarity rule. And I think that in lots of situations, there came the problem because many other countries and the government was not respecting the principle of subsidiarity. And I think that should be one of the focal points in the future and strengthening in the future. As Professor was saying, like in the United States, it's 80 to 90% of organization of United States, it's on the federal states. I think it should be maybe not in that order, 80, 90%, but at least that there should be a larger spectrum of responsibilities on the countries. So I wanted to agree on that topic with you.
Okay, thanks. I can agree on traditional values. I don't complain about that much in Serbia. We, how can I say, cultivate the traditional values, and our country survived for the centuries because of traditional values. So I think the point is we need to somehow rebel against the new trends that comes from the West, as it's called neoliberalism. So the neoliberalism, I think it's a cause of ruining the traditional values, and they interfere into our choice. So they somehow want their own opinion. And I can agree with Professor also that we need to cultivate traditional values, no matter what countries, no matter what languages do we speak. So yeah, that's all I can say about it. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for inviting me again. I'm really happy to be here, and it's a honor for me to talk to you. I'm from Georgia. Maybe most of you already know me. When we are talking about the traditions, I right now wanted to mention Georgia. Most of people are thinking that Georgia is so traditional. Georgian people are really traditional. We love tradition. Is it working? So Georgian people are really traditional. We love traditions, but when we are saying that we need to bring these traditions, bring our culture in our politics, we must be doing it really and not like the right now the ruling party of Georgia is doing. Because right now the ruling party in Georgia is saying that we are traditional, we are embracing our traditions, we are embracing our pride, or we are decent, but in reality the facts are telling us otherwise. In Georgia, um, many things. For example, abortion is allowed. Not only abortion, uh, childs can be sold. Can you imagine? So when a woman uh, is giving a birth to a child, this child can be sold without a problem, and there's no problem. There's no problem. Government isn't working to solve this problem. Okay, so at the same time, they are saying that the traditions are important. They are doing everything for traditions. They are also pointing at EU that, hey, look at the EU. They are against the traditions, and we want to keep our traditions. So right now we are trying to be as far as possible from the EU, and instead we are trying to be friend with Russia. So you're not telling this way, but with their actions, this is what they are doing. But at the same time, they are worse at defending traditions than the EU. This is what I wanted to say. So,
Yeah, thank you very much for your informative talks. I would just like to say that I found everything you said very interesting, and I agree with him. I was just wondering if you have any comments on. Okay, so we have a reality. We can be very negative about this reality that we face now in Europe in terms of European Union and its policies and politics today. But I was wondering if you have some opinions on reform of the European Union in a way that could bring it back to Schuman's idea. For example, the Commission, would direct election by European people of commissioners, would that be a solution? Or what about the European Parliament, some reforms? Where could you just give your opinion on what structural reforms you might recommend for the union itself that might lead us a little bit back toward the Schuman reality, the Schuman idea? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that last question. It is also related to some ideas presented by my colleague from Lithuania. First of all, answering the question, I would like to say that economic integration based on common market it was a good idea. It was quite safe content of integrational processes. But I would like add something to my Lithuanian colleague, which is related to economic integration at the beginning, or the first phase of European integration. It was not only liberal common market, but also it was some system of redistribution for weaker states and weaker regions, which was called regional policy and after them renamed for cohesion policy. So the combination of liberal common market and some protection for weaker states or weaker regions was a very good idea, very good recipe for success. For success. I agree that political integration leading to centralized superstate was a failure from the point of view of democratic standards, as well from the point of view of centralized management of very ambitious but also ideologized projects, including economic projects. So centralization is a threat, answering the question. And we have some alternative pattern, proposed by Schuman. Decentralized system, subsidiary system, based on nations and national democracies. So it is alternative vision of European integration. But centralization leads to destabilization, consecutive crisis and problems. How to preserve the Europe against the centralized pattern is very difficult, almost impossible, because majority of decision makers in Western Europe support even further, deeper centralization. So it is almost impossible project. But for instance, we have to curb competences, powers of European Commission. We have to curb European judges, the powers of Court of Justice of the EU. We have to constrain the so-called competence creep processes. We have to impose some institutions for monitoring or controlling the rule of law, but not by national administrations or member states, but rule of law of European institutions. It is particularly important because the current process of centralization is based on consecutive, constant breaching of current treaties. In the name of further European integration, they breach, violate rule of law in Europe. And it is perceived by European elite, by Western Europe, as a positive factor, as a positive phenomenon. So we have provide a lot of solutions, but you can see that even one of them is almost impossible to implement because of huge opposition in current political environment.
To be opposite to that, what you said, in a certain reality, Professor Reichert said, yes, we have reality. Then in that reality, what we can improve. So, I mean, a voting commission is a very right proposal. So let's say we have a few candidates for the commissionary, like Ursula von der Leyen was elected, in not democratic way. Some guys just agreed she is going to be a commissioner. Okay, it's not democratic way. So your professor's suggestion for election of a commissioner. So a few candidates. I am sure that the decision of the nations elections, European-wide election would lead to the more will improve the quality and the bring a better candidates. So this is I support that, and this is possible. This is not impossible, Professor Grosse. Okay, so we have a new generation. We are here, Schuman Trimarium Forum. We would like, to challenge a new generation, like nice ladies and, students sitting here. Probably the old dinosaurs like me are lost, but you are the future. So it means the Soviet Union existed 70 years and bankrupted. So this outlook of the European Union shouldn't be and will be not forever. Okay? And I agree with such a approach. What in this reality we can change? And this is possible. Okay? Because do not say impossible, because it's not. We would like to basically send a positive message to the young audience, right? And as well to elect what I would suggest as a next, not to have 700 European deputies, but just 100. And this 100 should be just advisors. So the European Commission shouldn't be a government who imposes on you many things, but should be the executive body, okay? Executive body according to that what is agreed between nations, between the leaders. If we speak about the influence of that region, Trimarium region, then of course we have challenge to integrate together, to get together and try to implement that election of the commissioner. So I'm sure if we will have a few candidates at the last decision where Ursula von der Leyen was elected, and if all Europeans would vote, I'm sure she wouldn't be at this chair, because there would be a chance to deliver 27 candidates from each country, right? So there will be a wide choice. As I heard, from some Swedish people, they do not know their deputies. They don't know what they do. And the deputies basically in Sweden as well, they do not have a strong relation with citizens. This is a big discrepancy. So I'm sure, Professor Reichert, if the many decisions of the voting of important positions in the European Union would be brought into the hands of all citizens of Europe, we would have today improvement, adjustment in that reality. We would not change much, but a little bit, slowly, step by step. And after getting that positive outcome, it would challenge us to the next steps. That is the right approach, because you never change everything, and you never change everything at the 1 day, 1 year revolutionary, okay? So, but we have to be open-minded, you know, thinking about that everything is possible. The question is how, with which speed, and how we can, you know, integrate, and how we can attract the people and certain powers and forces, you know, to implement that. So thank you. Do you think I am right? So it's somebody is going, you know.
Okay, it's a very interesting discussion started, but I wonder whether we have time, you know. I would like just to add few remarks. Professors from America, sorry, I don't know exactly your name, but proposals, actually, they are not coming. These proposals, how to reform European Union institutions, are not new. Let's look to the history of European integration, and you will see many proposals already were debated and discussed. One of them, okay, we may summarize, short remark, we may summarize all of them into two directions. One direction was exactly as you proposing, you both actually, because you joined. European Commission is new, but it fits to the general pattern, how to but how to strengthen European Parliament, it was on the table for many years. So for one direct, yes, but it, okay, people. So two directions of many proposals. One direction, what set of proposals exactly goes like this? If it is new, it's okay, but it fits to the general, the same kind of proposals. How to democratize European Union institution? Let make them more democratic. That was the slogan, and many attempts were made to do such thing. Starting with cultural policy, introducing cultural policy in the 70s and 80s. Adonino Committee report, you know, the People's Europe. Your proposal totally fits to the People's Europe idea. How to bring more and more people to the on the level of European politics to strengthen democracy of the European Union. It fits. Maybe it is new, this concrete, but actually it fits to the general. And this kind of proposals, you know, let's make more elections. Let's elect European Commission president. Let's elect the judges, the justices of the European Court of Justices. Let's elect the president of the European Central Bank. You know, let's expand all your arguments, you know. So these kind of proposals were known for the decades. How to make European Union institutions more democratic. All of them failed. All of them failed. And this is not like, you know, criticism or pessimistic. No, I am just referring to the old debate about two directives, how to make reform. So one was to make more democratic. Another was very interesting. By the way, this another set of proposals were coming not from the European scientists and politicians, but from the American political scientists, such as the Andrew Moravchik, for example, or Italian Gian Domenico Maggione. What they told? They told, do not make such democratization attempts. They will fail. Why? Because the more democracy you bring, I am not presenting my argument, I'm presenting this American school argument, let's say. Because the more you present democracy in the European Union, the more it will resemble the features of the nation state, and the more will be, how to say, political war, as we see in the national parliaments regarding redistribution. For example, let's make stronger European political parties, because now European Parliament is elected not from European political parties, but from national political parties. Do you agree? Of course, 100%. There are no any single European party. It is national European parties, and we are selecting from them, right? In the national election. So the more democratically you go on the European Union, the deeper legitimacy problem you will have, because this would create political tensions the same kind as we see in the national government. Take Dutch example, how it is difficult to form government. Take French example for Macron, how it is difficult to form. So we will have the same kind of problem on the European level. It would disturb European Union's function, argument goes finally. Therefore, they say, don't trouble it, okay? Don't make additional problems to the EU. So what is their another campus proposal? Functional proposal. Don't make attempt to democratize EU. Let remain it on the effective governance of the free market. Focus on free market. Gendeminiko Majonė idea on regulatory state. European Union as the regulatory state. It is not a state. It is just like rhetoric figure, you know, regulatory function. Regulate effectively market because it is effective. It is not burdened about bureaucracy. It is quite easygoing. And the most important, it benefits everybody. It benefits each member state. And do you remember about the most difficult debates within EU integration through history? The easiest debates were based on the economics. No one vitally were against economical proposals. Charles de Gaulle empty chair crisis was not on the economics, was not on the political background. Okay, so this school of thought in the European integration history is focused on the effective economical regulation, which benefits everybody, mostly benefit. And Poland would agree also, Lithuania agrees also, that we receive plenty of benefits from common market regulation, including the cohesion funds. Okay, but I am presenting these two kinds of arguments. Okay, good.
In economic, you know, distribution of the wealth, not only for the Poland, but for the our entire region. And there is a huge asymmetry. So just one word, Professor Grosse today said the impact of the geopolitics on the economy. And this is what we are talking about now. What you raised is, you know, electing the commissioner. This is a geopolitics. And this have impact on the economy. And I disagree with you, because if the geopolitics has impact on the economy, so there is a correlation. So if you do not change the geopolitics, you will not be able to manage and change the economy.
My concluding remarks. Thank you. It is absolutely very interesting and crucial topic of our discussion at the end of our panel. I admire Professor Krysiak and your suggestion because to democratize European institutions. In my view, it is very noble proposals, but I'm worried that it might fail during implementation process, because it is quite old proposals to increase democratization in the EU in the way to federalize EU structure in a similar way to the US. So I read at least 10 years ago exactly the same proposals in European documents. The same proposals are going to strengthen European Parliament, for instance, as a democratic chamber, which should be more powerful, which should lead as a true democratic chamber to the EU. It is, as I mentioned, very noble proposals, but during implementation, it is always a problem that they lead to superstate, to centralization with very limited democratic impact on Brussels administration, etc. So we can see current European Parliament. It is democratic institution, but it is strongly ideologized. Of course, but to strengthen powers, powers of European Parliament, it is good solution or bad? In my view, it is bad. Because in fact, European my experience, I have no time to explain in details, but my experience is that federal solutions like direct election of European Commission, direct election of representative of the head of European Commission, or strengthening the powers of European Parliament. It is the democratic federal solutions always are implemented against democratic standards. In reality, to strengthen, only legitimize superstate led by very narrow elite, Brussels elite, which is very far from citizens, very far, in fact, in reality, from democratic standards.
Thank you very much, professors. Time is out, so we have to finish the discussion. I invite you to Lars, so continue.
Thank you very much. We all agree that it's time to coffee break, 10 minutes.
start the last panel at this day. I invite Ola Kot, who will be the moderator of this panel. Ola, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We are starting our last panel. So the discussion will be on what in the eyes of youth should be the Three Seas region look like according to Schuman's ideas. And at this point, I want to invite our first panelist, Professor Marit Kreitenburg. Please come to the stage. She's a lecturer at the European Studies Program, researcher on European integration. Our next panelist is Stanisław Paszkiewicz, a dynamic advocate for youth-led initiative and regional cooperative in the Three Seas area. At this point, I want to invite Aloysius Ngunamaina, a forward-thinking young leader in the international collaboration and formation of virtue. Please, I want to invite to the stage Wojciech Mazurkiewicz, a historian from KU who is eager to discuss European values. And last but not least, I want to invite Arthur Berhior. He's a student who grasps the importance of democratic values. Please come to the stage. Okay, so they say that true understanding comes when you can explain a complex concept in a simple words. And I want to refer to Professor Kantenberg. By turning your PhD thesis into a children's book, The Father of Europe, you presented Schumann's ideas in a simple way. Which of these ideas do you think connect best with young people and could shape the vision of Three Seas region?
Thank you very much for this nice question. First of all, I introduce this topic a little tiny bit by what I also say to students. I mean, we heard a lot about Schuman, what all did not go well with the European Union. But, you know, I always say also, first question I ask, who started the first peaceful revolution in Europe? The answer is Schuman. And then I say, we have never, ever had such a long period of peace among the EU member states as we have since 1945, 1950 Schuman Declaration. And we should not forget about that. And I also mentioned that Schuman was the one who knew how to finish through a reconciliation attitude, the arch enmity between Germany and France. For more than 1,000 years, they were arch enemies, always fighting, always war because of Alsace-Lorraine, always. He knew how to finish this and how they started together as arch enemies. They started together a peace project using the instruments of war, which are coal and steel, as instruments of peace and putting them at a supranational level so that they could no longer be German or French. This way, you know, he provided peace. This is what I want to say, because now we have heard many things that are going wrong with the European Union. I know there are many things going wrong. and I agree with many things that are said, not all of them, but many things, yes, that we deviated from his way of thinking. But there are also very many good things. And there was an interview, they did me an interview last month. And they said also, just to give you an idea, for a Catholic newspaper, Margriet, what do you think? There are quite a number of Catholics in the Netherlands that are really doubting about the European Union. If they like it, if they have to be against it, if they have to be in favor of it, or whatever. And I said, there is a saying in Holland that says, be careful, don't throw the baby away with the bathwater. So what I think is that we have to purify from within the European Union as it is today. And I think there are beautiful things said now about, for example, working, what you do has the Eastern and Central European countries working together in infrastructure. Excellent. Ask for the money to the Western European countries, the EU, and ask them. The digitally work very well together. And all these things, do so, but really connect with the West. Because if you connect with the West, you build bridges and they also will like you, but if you don't involve each other, if you involve people now, okay, I will go to your question now, because if not, I see that I go and I keep on talking. I go to your question. As I believe so very much that Schuman's way of thinking is a way to solve all problems somehow. Relational problems, small problems between people, between countries, between continents. That's why I decided to make a children book out of my PhD thesis. And and so I did, together with a colleague of mine. And now we have it in 9 languages. It's also in Hindi in India, so they read it all over there. And the idea is, the most important thing is, and that is exactly what you asked me, is, and that's a little bit what I said already at the beginning of this day, try to be good. Focus on the positive of every person, of every country. If you do so, you elicit the best. That is a way of appreciative dialogue. See where are the common interests. See how you can build on common interest. If there are no common interests, respect each other. And this is something, and I do it. It is the story of a Syrian girl, refugee, who goes to Germany, and then she travels with her father. It is in the style of Sophie's World. I don't know if you know the book. She travels with her father through the history of Europe, and she meets Schuman in different stages. And Schuman is telling her his way of thinking. And this way of thinking comes down to, be good. See it as a challenge. Wow, it's nice to be good. And if I may say one more thing, it is an expression of the Saint Jose Maria. He said, these world crises are crises of saints. With a handful of saints, we can improve this world, because every person makes circles and circles and circles. And that is the way we purify the world, and we give hope to the world, and we will be happy. So it is a way of happiness. And this girl, also this Amira, who lost her mother in the war, she also recognizes, oh, wow, this is a good way. Wow, let everybody just flourish as he or she is. That is it.
Thank you. So one good deed sparks another, one might say. So when it comes to these and what we can actually do, I want to ask Stanisław, what changes in regional policy within 3 Seas could be better engaged to become active and collaborative across the region?
Okay, by region, I mean the Trimarium region, of course. So to really portray this question, we have to work on in 3 dimensions. The first dimension is cultural dimension. Second one is political, and the third one is economical. So when it comes to, let's say, cultural thing, is that the youth, you've asked me about the youth in our region don't really know each other. when I was talking about it with Stephen Baskerville, who is a university professor from United States, he told me that he was very surprised because he was a professor in Prague and now he's a professor in Warsaw. And he said that the countries of our region are not really into relation with each other. Actually, traditionalist or patriotic societies are more into hostility with each other. So it's really hard to build relations. Yes. The second part, the cultural part about the youth is that the youth is migrating to West. So the France, Italy, and other countries are, let's say, like vacuums towards other youth. So what the countries are doing, for example, 2 million of Romanians live right now in Italy. More than 1 million of Poles are living in France and Germany. So we do not have the potential that youth could have given to our region. The next thing is that is the political thing. So the other side, I mean the policy, we do not have our own regional institutions. Western Europe, let's look at Scandinavia. They have institutions. Denmark, Sweden, and Finland are very into cooperation with each other. Even though Norway is outside of European Union, it's very welcomed. We do not have the same approach when it comes to, for example, Serbia, Macedonia, and other countries. We do not cooperate in our region that closely. So let me mention the economical aspect because it's very crucial. So when it comes to economy, as I've said, the youth is migrating to the West. So, for example, when a young man wants to set up a business, he is migrating to West to become a CEO of a company, or a woman is migrating to West to marry a wealthy businessman. So we all believe a lie that our region is not attractive. It's not attractive, that we are not able to create something better, something challenging to Russia and Germany. And I would also like to address the, let's say, change of mind. Because in the West, let's see at, let's say, movements that have changed the Western Europe. So let's look at the year 1968. The youth was rebellious towards the government of France, like Daniel Cohn-Bendit, or in Germany, Rudi Dutschke. So there are the, let's say, activists from the left side. Their policy was to demolish the traditional values, but they were really effective in their approach. Why? Because they were sure about their own policy, they were sure about their own activities. And we, as people who protect traditional values, are more into quarrel with each other right now than to build our own intergovernmental organizations. So to address it again, there must be a compilation of those three agendas: the cultural agenda, political agenda, and economical agenda. It must not stop just only about politics. So the change is always coming from the background. it's coming from society, and by society, the Rudiduczka or Cohn-Bendit have created elites that have later changed the policy and created a new mindset within their own societies. And in my opinion, it is very crucial to do the same thing, to learn by our own mistakes and do not treat the West as some kind of ideal, but rather as an example, to take to take the good things, but also learn on their mistakes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this contribution and that you referred to 3 different areas. And I want to ask about one particular when it comes to economics. And at this point, I want to ask Aloysius, how can the youth in Free Seas region contribute to the development of region's economic policy according to Schuman's ideas?
Thank you for the opportunity and for the question. To start off, I think it's best to make clear that I'm not an economist by profession. So I decided to approach the question from a philosophical, theological point of view. And it's also worth noting that I'm not European, but I have had the privilege and the pleasure of being in Europe for just about an year now. And I can say there are some things that I've been able to observe that I feel that might be helpful, might not. This will be open, of course, for interaction, so feel free. So in my mind, like I said, trying to approach the idea of economy from a philosophical, theological point of view, the first thing to do is break down what we mean by economy. What is the essential idea of economy? And trying to also see this from Schumann's point of view. So in my mind, what I know about Schuman right now, and there's still a lot that I would like to basically know more about him, is focusing on his idea that Europe needs to be, of course, this cooperative society, like we've mentioned most of today, but also a society or a community that does not ignore or neglect its Christian roots, its Christian spirit, and being respectful of each other. So from the Christian point of view, an economy comes down, in my opinion, to basically 2 ideas. So the idea of resources, or another word could be materials, products, essentially what we need to live. And the idea is an economy needs to provide what the things that a society needs to stay alive. So food, housing, work in some sense or another, essentially what we need to live as human beings. And so that is resources. And on the other side, essentially work. So professional life, the idea of what it means for a human being to, I would say, be creative, be part of a community, be somebody who takes care of the environment, takes care of other people. So first of all, regarding resources, so if the youth of this region, so the Trimarium region, by my mind, I can expand it to all of Europe. So the first thing you need to do is, you're saying that an economy needs to be something that focuses on providing what people need, resources. That means you need to ask yourself, what are your intentions? An economy's intention, if it wants to be a Christian economy, should not focus on profit first. So that would be my first idea, is to move away from the idea of focusing on pure profit, focusing on material wealth, because that leads to the temptation of selfishness, it leads to greed, it leads to competition, but unhealthy competition, and which I feel that the community that Europe, the European Union, is trying to aim for, it will be counterproductive. So that means the youth need to be taught, first and foremost, your intention should be through your work, through your industry, through whatever it is that you're doing to contribute to the nation. It should be something that gives to the other, something selfless. And that's why I'm saying intention matters. And I wanted to give, it's not really so much an example, but some stories I've had over the last year is, at least in Poland, I would assume it applies also to other areas in the region, and is the issue of small-scale farming. So I decided to pick that because I know it's also an issue in my own country, where a nation, a country is thinking about, we need goods, we need to import certain goods, we need to export certain goods for the country to become richer, wealthier, have a better GDP. But sometimes in aiming for profits as your objectives, you forget the people on the ground, small-scale farmers. So for instance, in Kenya, it's a big problem that maize, tea, coffee, which tend to be our main products, there are times when the government would decide to buy these same goods, these same crops from countries in the West, because they will give us those goods at a cheaper price. But then that means the small scale farmers are not paid for their produce. They are not paid for their goods. These crops are collected by the government, put in warehouses, granaries, the food rots, goes bad, and instead the government decides to take the cheaper option in the name of a greater economy. The reason I bring this up is because I've had in Poland, there have been similar cases where many of the farmers have been complaining that they're not really being treated fairly. They've not been given what they need to grow their crops, not being paid fairly. And that, I feel, would be, I can't claim I know the grand picture of the entire situation, but it sounds similar to the sort of situation where a government would decide to focus only on profit and not actually focusing on the people, not focusing on giving people what they need. So that is one thing. On the idea of work, Professor already mentioned an idea related to St. Josemaria, which in truth is something that is a Christian idea from before Vatican II, but also post-Vatican II. And from what I've read from Schuman, a similar idea comes out. So work or profession, whatever it is that you do, needs to be something that adds value to people. Once again, it's not something that you don't do work to pass time. You don't do work to simply earn your living almost in a boring sort of sense. You don't do it because you have to. You do it because you as a human being are called to cooperate with God in the act of making a better world, creating a better space, being a steward of creation. And from what I've read from Schuman, serving his country as a minister, being a politician, which is an important point, he's, at least through his example, you could say this is someone who decided, I'm not going to be a politician for the sake of the prestige, for the sake of the fame, for the sake of the legacy you leave behind. His focus was on helping people and showing that someone in his position can leave a lasting legacy. Lasting legacy, once again, not for ulterior motives, but to do his work well. And that, I think, is very important, because we need to show that you can be a person of faith and yet be a good leader, be a good politician, just like has been mentioned. So doing your work well, wherever it is you are, whether you're a sweeper on the street, whether you're in the highest political position, if you work and operate in such a way that you're thinking of higher ideals, higher concerns, for instance, the common good, as he said, then it's more likely you create a society where everyone benefits as they should. And in my opinion, that would be the best economic policy. And just as a last point, something else that I can say I've enjoyed being in Poland is, I would say, focusing on the idea of tourism. So one thing that is definitely unique from the European point of view as compared to the African point of view, you have the benefit of these very historic sites in your cities. The very concept of an old town does not apply to African cities as we have them right now, because for us, it's something that has only come about in the last 100 years due to colonialism. So here you have the benefit of hundreds of years of history. You've made an effort to preserve these buildings. You have museums all over the place. So that, being here as a student, has been something that I feel that already I've seen the efforts. Many young people act as tour guides. Many young people move around these cities and they show respect to these preserved sites. But I feel that the EU can probably do a bit more. I've seen some of these museums, of course, are funded, I guess, from various programs benefiting the EU, but putting a little bit more focus, a little bit more attention, and making tourism of this kind an important pillar of what it means to be European, to show even greater pride in having what we call an old town, having castles, ruins, and so on. And it might seem more, more of like a sentimental sort of sense of economy rather than technical, because someone would say, no, if you want to build economy, it's focused on energy, it's focused on food and so on. But it's precisely that history, precisely those things that are intangible, that I feel somehow bring more benefit to a country than you could possibly know, because you would be laying down foundations for something that could benefit someone 200 years from now. 200 years from now, someone from Serbia may not need to worry about the coal and the gas that is being produced at this exact moment. But by preserving something that was built in the 1300s or 1400s, that person, that child will have something truly valuable that unites them, that links them to their heritage, their past, in a way that they may not be able to really express. So I think that would also be an important way for Europe to, in a sense, I guess, diversify its, what I would say, I guess, the interests in terms of its economy. Once again, economy understood as providing the person what they need to stay alive, what they need to be human. So that means physical needs, emotional needs, psychological, mental, and so on. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. This was really moving and important. Sometimes we are lost in our values, but I think we need strong role models and strong leadership. And referring to values, I want to ask Wojciech, which leadership values from Schuman's vision are most important to you in the context of today's challenges facing young people in the Free Seas region?
Well, first, thanks for opportunity to speak. As I understand, you are asking me of value of leadership in our region of Trimarium. Well, let's talk about Schuman first. Who is he and what values he represents? At the beginning of our story, Europe was the center of the world. We control everything, China, Japan, Middle East, Africa. And then Europe made suicide twice. This suicide was called
First Great War and Second Great War. It destroyed Europe potential, it destroyed Europe future. And Schuman didn't want Western powers like France, like Netherlands, like Western Germany to become puppet of United States of America or the Soviet Union. Schuman wanted this power, these fallen great powers, to become independent, European, with its own foreign policy, its own economy, to become still relevant in global stage. It succeeds really well because European powers like France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Italy always had common values like Catholicism, like Christianity, like freedom of speech, like capitalism. It's now called the Western values because we also adapted in this cultural sphere America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, so not non-European powers. So because these ideas speak by Schuman was in Western Europe, it's really good. It was really good applied. But if we will look at our situation at Central Europe, at Balkans, at Baltics, so this Trimarium region, we will see that we are not the West. We are not Germany. We are not Italy. We are not France. We have many borders between our cultures. We have different historic aspects. For example, Balkans were under influence of Ottoman Empire for over 600 years. This certainly doesn't help to assimilate us being European. These regions are very poor, very undeveloped. Democracy and freedom of speech are there in critical state. There are corruption, oligarchs. There are really powerful pro-Russian parties till this day. Pro-Soviet symbols, monuments, streets, football clubs. So it shows that we are Poles who are anti-communist. We don't share the same value as, for example, as Serbs or Bulgarians or Romanians. Not to mention, we also have religious differences because we are Catholics. Czechs are atheists, just like some Baltic nations. Balkan nations like Bosnia are Islam. Romania, Bulgaria are Orthodox Christianity. So we have very much different ground than Western powers. And this is really difficult to begin talks about integration because we have three levels of integration: political, cultural, and economic. And if we look at every this aspect, like economy, like cultural, like political, we will see many differences. Western powers like France, like Germany, had a common goal in foreign policy. But if we look at certain powers from Central Europe, like Slovakia or Hungary, they are not very pro-European. They like to meet with Putin, with China, with enemy of freedom of democracy. So it's really difficult to say what values we could apply from Schuman ideology to Three Seas region, because we are not West. We don't have many similarities. We have more differences I think our only common thing is that we have white skin in this region, but everything else is different. History, language, cultural identity. So integration of its region is like Russian tank, the armata, tak zwany. It exists on paper, but in reality, it doesn't.
Thank you, Wojciech. You've spoken about differences and how many there are between us. And I still strongly believe that we may work on them and gain something from them. And that's why I want to ask Artur, how can our unique differences strengthen the bond within the Free Seas initiative?
Okay, thank you for ability to speak. And let's start. I want to pay attention to this table. You see lots of flags of nations which could truly be proud of their identity and history, but somehow these nations are in conflict with each other. And this conflict is based on history. History is the thing that divide us. Every country has a rich history and we are proud of it. And some experts, so-called experts, suggest that it is our weakness, that we should be uniformic, we should have the big market mass, and we should become similar to each other or homogeneous. But I think that our history and cultural differences and different historical experience could be our strength, not weakness. For example, I want to explain some way of thinking about history. The history is the experience of nation how to deal with problems. And every country of our region has very rich experience to deal with very different problems and the different empires. And every nation find very different solution. And we could learn our history and teach another nations, another free sea nations about our unique experience and be proud of it. For example, Poland have very unique experience how to survive and how to thrive in the horrible conditions of totalitarianism. We are faced the German totalitarian Nazist occupation and Soviet one. We have the horrible German camps in our territory, and we thrive and survive. The Polish people create very strong traditions of self-organization. There is one word in Polish history, organic job. When the elite of our country teach simple people about history, language, and the culture, which is the task of the government, not the ground spontaneous initiative. Another example, Hungary. Hungary have very strong experience how to deal with multinational empire. Hungarians in Austro-Hungarian Empire create their own successful position because before 1867, Austria was only German-dominated empire, German language-dominated empire, and Hungarian not only fight, but also negotiate their own autonomy. And we, by learning Hungarian history, could understand how we could negotiate our position in the multinational empire and multinational organization. Another example, Serbia. Serbia has this strong experience how to deal with another civilization empire, which threaten not only national identity, but the Christian values themselves. Serbians really, truly understand what does mean defend Christian values and die for the Christian values, die for the faith. And last but not least, Lithuania. Lithuanians revive their language, their culture from the scratch. Lithuania culture culture is going died in 19th century if not actions provided by Lithuanian romantic intellectuals, which revived their language from scratch. In 19th century, Lithuanian language was the language of peasants, of poor, non-educated people. Nowadays, it's the language of elite and business people and whole the nation. And I think that every country, every Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia have their own identity, have their own experience that will that they could share, that could teach another nations, teach how, and we could create somehow very rich set of experience how to deal in nowadays world, because history is not about reconstruction, it's not about nostalgia, it's about experience, and it's about the practical usage of this experience. And I think the biggest role of this doings, these actions could create youth. Youth is the future of our region. We have fewer youth. Our population is strongly aging. It is the biggest threat of our economy. If we will not solve this problem, we will become poorer, less important, and less able to proud of our self-existence. And young, especially young education, because we haven't any natural resources, no oil, no gas, no rare minerals. Maybe Serbia have somehow lithium, but not okay. And the young people of our region should take responsibility on themselves to educate, to become stronger, and create the renewed Europe by Christian values, by free market values, and by the Schuman ideas that Schuman on the skies should be proud of us.
Thank you for this strong reference. I hope that you are really hungry for questions. So let's give a round of applause to panelists for the whole discussion. Thank you once again. And the time is unfortunately up, but feel welcome to further questions.
I do not have a question, but I would like to congratulate, young panel under the umbrella Schuman Academy. And I was very excited to listen to, because all of you just express, different things from different sides. And we noticed that you look, for instance, differently to some certain issues. You, Arthur, as well, right? But what excited me, that you said about the history, we should learn, conclude. This helps us, to develop this relationship. And I think generally all of you have basically expressed in your speeches some connection to Robert Schuman. We have a common page, common table, and that's what I understood from your speeches. This common table is a Schuman. And thank you for your speech. You basically talked about, that new colonialism. And we organize as an Institute of Schuman for many conferences and we had speakers from Africa. And I agree with you. The economy should be a solidary economy, because what is happening now in Africa, yeah, because of cheaper prices, they destroy your agriculture. So if you add the value of a destruction, so it's more efficient to buy crops from your peasants. Yeah. So therefore, I think, Margaret, you're right. We can learn from Schuman. He was just he spoke about not just a kind of a neoliberal economy. He spoke about the solidary economy, which is a different. And Schuman, in sometime he thought about the Africa. He said that Europe has a big challenge towards the Africa. But nowadays we see in some places in Africa, they are engaged to the mining of diamonds, right? Small boys, and the GDP in these countries per capita is very high, even higher than in Poland, but the people are poor around. So this is a new colonialism. So thank you, Victoria. You have put in your paper this piece of related to problems with a new colonialism, referring to minings of, I think, cobalt in Africa. Yeah, she wrote a very interesting paper we discussed today. And Stanisław, he's my student, congratulations. You are, as usually, analytically approaching point by point. And Ola, Alexandra, congratulations. You just created a great stuff and you chaired this panel very well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. If someone don't have signed the list, please do it today, do it now. And now we go to the dinner. I think this is a very good idea. Then bye bye till tomorrow.